The top story this evening, the South African Sugar Association and Cane Growers Association have been given until December the 12th to recognize the Small Farmers Union. This after both the SASA and SASA did not comply with the earlier directive to do the same. This is a last-ditch effort by Department of Trade and Industry and the Portfolio Committee to reach a settlement. The committee agreed with the DTI on the following recommendations. SASA special meeting on December the 12th must implement DTI's instructions. SAGA resist the mediation or agreement. They will be removed from SASA and full membership will be given to SAFTA. If SASA doesn't comply, DTI will request Minister of Trade and Industry to amend the regulations to recognize SAFTA. DTI may ultimately request Parliament to amend the Sugar Act of 1978. If the DTI's instructions are not implemented, may change laws to disband the SASA-SAGA. A mediation process between the parties will restart tomorrow. It is the fight of 90% small cane producers in KwaZulu-Natal pitted against their 10% established counterparts. The small farmers are battling for a separate union as they allege that the current white-dominated union is ignoring their needs. At the center of this confrontation is an apartheid-era act being used as a tool to maintain status quo in the sugar industry. The deadline set by Trade and Portfolio Committee for the marginalized farmers to be recognized ends today. Will the Cane Growers Association let go of its dominance? An ANN7 special report.
These rotten piles of sugarcane are months of hard labor and investment gone to waste, destroyed not by forces of nature but apathy. For Sibusiso Mtshali, a small farmer in KwaDingindlovu, survival is difficult, like a hopeless adventure.
Thina-ke ngayindlela okusebenzeka ngayo kuyacaca ukuthi umuntu omnyama nje akekho.
His plight is not isolated. There are thousands of cane growers working on communal land and marginal land reforms still awaiting a support system to pull them out of their historical disadvantage. In this case, their produce is rotten due to alleged differential treatment.
Our black trucks have been parked, and we can see white trucks coming in and out of the mill as they please. So there's a tractor that's been parked there from yesterday, and you can only imagine what does it mean to that cane that is parked here. What does it mean to the owner of the truck? The reality is, until we have a solid black voice, we will never realize change.
Sifiso Mguni has picked up the cudgels on behalf of these farmers. He believes that 24 years after liberation, race still makes the small-scale cane grower subject to exploitation.
It took me forever in my life to understand how the apartheid system was allowed to persist for so many years, yet it was so obviously wrong.
The South African Cane Growers Association is authorized by the Sugar Act of 1978 to receive 100% of the growers' levies. This money, meant to help the small farmers, is given to them by the South African Sugarcane Association. The emerging farmers, who happen to be mostly black, feel Cane Growers Association does not serve their interests, favoring the dominant white farmers instead.
You hear people talking about this SA cane growers been representing cane growers for whatever. It is untrue.
Long brewing discontent has forced these farmers to raise their voices. They want a union of their own, a union that works with them and for them, to ensure they have access to the money they desperately need and deserve.
We need our levies from so-called South African cane growers, which was formulated by white monopoly capitalists. So these levies have been taken from us for decades. if I may say, fraudulency.
Last year, the conflict came to a head. Department of Trade and Industry had to be called in to mediate. The DTI is convinced that the outcry for a new union is legitimate. It has instructed the South African Sugar Association to amend its constitution to acknowledge SAFTA as a legitimate industry body. But Cane Growers Association refuses to let go of its dominance.
SA Cane Growers Association hates the word transformation with everything they have. As we speak, they are spending every little cent they have to hire senior legal counsel, no matter how much they cost, even if it was not on budget, just to make sure that they fight against transformation.
What is being proposed here by SAFTA is to go back to the past. It's to rewind the clock. It's to undo that transformation that is detailed in accomplishment in Annexures 31 and 32.
This year, 57 million has been collected in levies. This money can go a long way to make life as a cultivator easy for Spusiso and 90% of the farmers that contribute to this fund. The Department of Trade and Industry instructed South African Sugarcane Association to share the levies equally between the warring factions till the matter is resolved. 1 year later, the dissatisfied farmers still do not have access to their monies.
It was just a white-only, meeting, I must say, but they're becoming frequent. I could see the guys, around, and then I'm not part of that, but I'm still here in the office. But what is even said about it is that the content of some of those meetings, because I got used to seeing them in the office without me being involved, knowing that I should be part of that meeting.
SACA is flaunching an apartheid-era act to maintain and defend the status quo. Sugar Act of 1978 recognizes the South African Sugar Association as the body that can deduct levies from the farmers and then distribute it to recognized farmers' associations. Courtesy of this provision, the South African Cane Growers Association gets all the levies meant for the growers. Black marginal farmers say the established farmers that dominate SACA are shutting them out. SACA dismisses the efforts to break free as anarchy.
To us, they're anarchists who are wanting to destroy our organization and the unity of growers. If there's something that we don't offer and they could be offering, then that would be great. We would be fully supportive of their efforts to do it.
I only learned that when I came to Cane Growers, to realize that actually they managed to get it away with it because they just don't care. They just do it. No matter who says what, they just don't care.
Cane Growers is committed to continuing the journey of transformation. We need to continue working at it and transforming and evolving, and we're doing our level best to do that.
This is an organization that uses blacks only for sessions such as this. I wasn't shocked when I saw 3 blacks sitting here and only 2 whites, or 1 white or 2 sitting on the side, because this is what we were there for. We are going to be used for sessions such as this, window dressing.
Sfiso Mguni should know what he's talking about. He was once on the board of Cane Growers Association but quit in frustration. He says he was tired of being used for window dressing.
I can remember very well a time when we had to meet with the Department of Economic Development, and I was told a few days before the meeting that you are part of the delegation to go and see the department. And I asked, do I have to prepare anything for presentation? He said, no, don't worry. The presentation has already been done, it's gone. You just come dressed in your best suit and tie, just like I'm dressing now. But the difference now is that I'm given a chance to speak. There I was told I was not supposed to do anything, just come dressed in your best suit and tie. An insult, I took that as an insult.
Largely a white farmers association, SACA steadfastly refutes all charges of lack of transformation in their ranks. They argue it is in fact the creation of a rival small farmer association that would destroy transformation.
We have a federation of growers all represented under one body. To argue otherwise is nonsensical.
As multiple parties claim and fight to champion their cause, farmers like Sbusiso find themselves caught in the crosshairs. The withering of crops continues, and so does the blame game.
Owethu moba uma nje uze uphelelwe amandla ngoba nosetsemeni ushayiwe ulele phansi nalo la emshinini ke awuthathwa kodwa ke inkampani ezinkulu zabamhlophe zona zithi ifika nje zibe ingena la ngoba kuthiwa bona bane allocation enkulu thina ke ngayindlela okusebenzeka ngayo kuyacaca ukuthi umuntu omnyama nje akekho.
Black contractors are sabotaged deliberately so that they can be shown to be failures. Their trucks are kept here waiting almost the whole day, which means that they can't go back to pick up the more cane from the zones. It's for everyone to know that in this country, this industry it's designed to keep the status quo of white supremacy and continue enlarging the inequality gap.
The sad thing is that they are using black growers' money to fight black growers, which is quite sensitive. It's quite an insult.
All efforts towards recognition frustrated, the farmers were once again forced to knock on the government's door. Back at the parliament, they pleaded for help.
We're here to ask one thing, that 1994 came. For whatever reason, good or bad, the sugar industry did not emigrate. When all of us transformed from the pre-1994 to post-1994, this industry was left behind. We are just asking that this industry be emigrated into the new South Africa.
There is hope as the Director General in Department of Trade and Industry, Lionel October, agrees that government cannot allow the status quo in the sugar industry to continue. He is the one who signed the order to recognize Smaller Farmers Association, SAFTA, last year. The DTI Portfolio Committee Chair John-Marie Fabs says they may have to crack the whip in the face of continued defiance by Cane Growers Association.
It is both ironical and sad that 2 decades later, the fight for transformation is still raging and the resistance is blatant. The Cane Growers Association is digging in its heels in the face of a growing rebellion, while the South African Sugar Association is non-committal and has avoided direct answers to our queries. It is now up to the Department of Trade and Industry to diffuse this brewing revolt that may blow up. With Nasi Pisame in Cape Town and Solima Pumulo in Johannesburg, I'm Notando Ngosi in KwaZulu-Natal for ANN7.
Well, joining me in studio now to discuss this further is Siyabonga Madladla, SAFTA Chairman, and also Soli Mapumolo, who is the Special Projects Investigative Reporter. Well, thank you so much for joining me in studio and coming to discuss this a bit further. Let's start with you, Siyabonga. Now, the Cane Growers Association, they were instructed in November of 2016 to recognize SAFTA as an association. Not much has happened since then, but now do you feel hopeful of a breakthrough on December the 12th?
Thank you so much, Stephanie, for having us. Cane Growers is enjoying the status quo. They're collecting all the poor farmers' levies, and they are enjoying the status quo, so there's no reason for them to change anything. So we are actually excited by the timeline given to the 12th of December. We don't have very much hope on the process, because Cane Growers is still 50% of the decision making of the 12th. But we have so much faith in the fact that then DTI steps in and imposes a solution.
And also, why has this process taken so long? It's been 2 years now since this whole process started, and not much has been done.
It's said that it's just boils down to the very fact that they are enjoying this current status quo, and they are 50% of SASA. SASA is a dysfunctional bureaucracy, unfortunately. So that's why the change could not be achieved in such a long time.
Let's go across to you, Soli. Why did you decide to do this story? Why was it so important to you?
Thank you very much for having me. I was moved by the plight of the black farmers. because I come from KwaZulu-Natal, I've seen a lot of farmers who are struggling. So I decided to work on this story because a lot of people don't know what's happening to the farmers. They don't have any support, they don't have anyone to help them because they are far away in the rural areas. Now, cane growers is refusing to just give them a share of their levies. That's all they're asking for, so that they'll be able to have resources and have their own offices and help the farmers to actually develop themselves.
Well, let's just go across to the research. What kind of research did you do, and what type of response did you get from the Cane Growers Association and SASA while you were doing this research?
Well, they were both very evasive. They avoided all our questions. They only chose the questions that they wanted to answer.
Well, also joining us on the phone line is Yamkela Spengane, Black Consciousness political activist. A very good evening to you, Yamkela, let's just go through the 24 years post-liberation. How do you see this alleged racial bias by small-scale growers in KwaZulu-Natal?
Well, this thing, we cannot separate it from the historical land dispossession of black farmers who then come in. And one of the main things that has been put to the fore when we are saying that land redistribution should be something that is looked at with a very vigorous intent by the South African government. It's always said that, but when you give black farmers opportunities, they waste the land, they can't farm, they can't do that. So what are they going to do with the land that gives us food security as a country? So this particular case study shows the sidelining of these people with resources and everything possible to make them become incompetent and redundant. And without the resources, they will never be able to then be on par in terms of produce and everything to their white counterparts. And then it always goes back to saying that these people, what are they going to do with the land when they fail with the small portion that they have? And we cannot then separate all these things, because for 24 years, you must understand that there's a mandate that the Development Bank of South Africa has. There's a mandate that the Land Bank has. There's a mandate that the own South African government in terms of black economic empowerment and restorative justice to make sure that we are on par and make sure that we correct the injustices that were inflicted economically by the apartheid system are actually mended and the gap is closed. But there's no will on the side of the government, and actually these organizations take advantage of that. Hence we see that it's 24 years later and no gap has actually been bridged between black farmers and white farmers in places like KwaZulu-Natal, and not only in KwaZulu-Natal but throughout the country as a whole.
Well, Yamkela, please stay with us on the phone line. I'm going to come across the studio to see Bonga once again. Now, these levies, what are they supposed to be used for?
Look, an organization cannot run without resources. You need to have funds to pay for office space. You need to have funds to pay for your staff that you employ to actually do the actual development of these farmers. So ever since the walk away from Cane Growers, SAFDA was formed. In fact, the ex-CEO of Cane Growers joined us. A director of Cane Growers joined us. A black director as well joined us. We couldn't afford to keep them to pay their salaries because our levies are still taken by this giant, resistant organization. So the levies are more to run the organization and to be able to bring about the resources that the farmers are actually, in dire need of.
Now, also, the Department of Trade and Industry, they are in your favor in regards to all of this. But how has the reaction been from the SA Sugar Association and the Department of Agriculture?
When you say in our favor, I feel like dancing and shouting, because tell you what, this is an ethical cause. It's a right cause, a just cause. DTI is actually in favor of this just cause. It saddens me that SASA will resist this. These poor people are just saying, allow us to exist and allow us to run and fight for our own development. Allow us to take ourselves out of our own poverty. I mean, how can you stand against that? I mean, it's supposed to be celebrated, but SASA is actually just turning a blind eye. Department of Agriculture also supports SAFTA very much. In fact, when we lobbied for some funds, we got some funds from the Department of Agriculture which were to be channeled to our farmers. Cane Growers refused to partner government. That is why the formation of SAFTA, that look, let's form our own organization that will actually feel for our farmers.
Let's go across to Yamkela again on the phone line. What do you think this whole situation says about transformation, that the DTI actually have to threaten to dissolve some associations to get a reaction from them or to actually get them to respond to the request by SAFTA?
Well, it just shows, like I said earlier, that there's both unwilling. Sometimes the government actually has to push, but there are boundaries of resistance whereby the government actually has to threaten, has to take to court. And in due course, if everyone was a ball player and participated in the transformation agenda, we wouldn't have to be taking anyone to court. We wouldn't have to be having guys being threatened to be, not given funds by the DTI and so forth. We would have a situation whereby everyone is coming and playing ball, and white farmers know that there are black farmers that need to have transformation fall on them so that they can be on par, so that their produce can get A-grade market, so that they can go into distribution centers with their sugar and work with bigger companies like Hewlett and so forth. But here we find that there's this barrier that has been put, there's this bottleneck that has been put to ensure that the black farmers stay where they are. And if it's going to take another 24 years, then what it speaks to is that we have a case where one section of the population wants to maintain their privilege and their hegemony over everything that is economical and is disempowering to the other group of people or the other race, as you may put it. And it is then rightful and it is then time for the government to impose it, albeit forcefully, because 24 years is a long time to give people a willing way to transform, knowing where we are and where we come from, and that we really do have to correct the economic injustices of the past, because apartheid was a crime against humanity, not only because they beat and killed people up, but because they economically strangled a group of people to a point where they did not have any participation inside the economy, and they were just forced into the periphery of being machinery and slave workers. And to equalize that, it is going to have to be taken from these other groups that actually benefited from this system that was a crime against humanity.
Yeah, thank you, Yamkela. Now, also coming back to Studio Siyabonga to you, let me ask you, there have been two options brought before from the Department of Trade and Industry. Either you can work together with the Cane Growers Association and make sure that your differences are set aside, or the levies can be split equally. What do you choose, and was this initially what you asked for?
Look, first of all, SAFDA believes in a unified grower voice. We had hoped that our counterparts will realize that we need each other. But what they did was actually act out of some veto power and dug their heels and disallowed us participation. Currently, the situation is not good at all. The relationship is bad. So I think, firstly, it will be first level the playing field, allow the process of a separation, and probably when we do realize now that as equal partners now, we need each other, we can regroup. But the first, proposal by SAFDA was to arrange ourselves such that we are a unified body. But allow me to agree with Samgelo on one thing here. Look, the guys are currently enjoying the status quo. They are enjoying all the levies. They are enjoying the white, call it privilege they are enjoying right now. So they won't let go. So allow for the two processes, allow for the two parties to coexist as equals, and then it will regroup. Yeah.
I actually want to come across to you, Solly, once again. What is your feel of the story? Why do you think there has been so much, how can we say, that the SASA and also the Cane Growers Association, why do you think they don't want to work together with SAFDA? Why do you think there was so much push from them to not have them recognized?
I think they just don't want to share the levies, because this has been going on for the past 2 years, and in all the conversations that I've had with a lot of people, they just don't want to recognize them because they think that they'll have to share the levies. I think that's what the problem is all about.
Well, thank you so much for joining me in studio. This is a very interesting discussion. I do think we can have some more time on this. But that is Siyabonga Madlala, SAFDA chairperson, joining me in studio. Also, Soli Mapumolo, a special projects investigative reporter, and Yamkela Spengane, Black Consciousness, a political activist that joined us on the phone line to discuss this some further. Well, it is time now for a short break. Up next is Cindy Mabe with Prime, so do stay tuned.